Welcome, everybody, to episode 42 of the Odyssey Hour. We are your hosts, the Odyssey Hour. And with us tonight are two very special guests, Meredith and Natalie. And Natalie just joining us like 55 seconds ago.
It's been a long day for us. We had a long day.
All right. Well, I guess that's okay. You can understand. Technical difficulties happen. But welcome, ladies. I really appreciate you guys, making the time, especially with such a long day to come on and do this with us.
For sure.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Natalie, are you okay? Natalie. Oh no, she can't hear us.
I'll text her. All right.
Natalie.
Oh, she doesn't have audio. How do we tell her to do it?
That's her computer.
She just has to allow access. Probably she'll get it. She'll get it.
We'll figure it out.
We'll figure it out.
So, Meredith, obviously, since we have you, why don't you tell us a little bit about you guys and what you do?
Sure. So my name is Meredith Mccowan. I own Earthling Astrology in St. Paul. And about 3 years ago, I moved into a new office building. And within a couple of days of moving in, I met this girl down here who's trying to get her audio working, named Natalie. And I remember it's like frozen in my brain when I first met Natalie. She had just moved in the building a month or two before I did, I think. And she saw me, and this is her face. She's like, I'm so excited to meet you. And in my last office space, it was kind of like astrologer. I don't know. And then it was just so awesome to walk in and be like immediately accepted. And there's a psychic down the hall. Natalie, can you hear us now? No. Okay. So I do astrology. Natalie is a practicing psychic medium and published author. And within months of meeting each other, we went to a happy hour. And as what happens at happy hour, every once in a while, somebody will be like, hey, Meredith, I'm going through this. Can you look at my chart? And I'll be like, sure. If I feel like it, I'll pull up the chart. And at that happy hour, I had just met Natalie again. She was on my left. And I started looking at the chart for this person across the table. And Natalie said, hold on. As you're reading the chart, I'm getting information from spirit guides, or I'm getting information like she usually does. And I was like, what's happening? And from that happy hour, we, talked about the possibility of an astrologer and a psychic working together with a client in a setting to help them go through their life kind of struggles and come into their gifts and things like that. So, I mean, in a nutshell, I do astrology. I launched my business in 2017, and Natalie, I think, was around the same time, kind of hung her shingle being a practicing psychic medium. And our lives are so insanely parallel. If we go back into our history, like even our dads went to the same college in Iowa. Wow. We just have all these crazy things that are similarities, and we're actually opposite signs, so we balance each other out quite well. I'm a Capricorn, she's a Cancer, and each sign has an opposite sign, so we're like yin-yang kind of compatibility. So it's been magic. Natalie, can you hear us now?
Now I can. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yay.
The best part.
Yes.
Victory.
So I was just kind of telling the story of how we met and our different practices. And then, we went to Duluth up. When was that? It feels like a week ago, but it was a while ago. Para-Unity. It was a blast.
July 10th.
Was it July? What month is it?
Birthday.
September, 2 months ago. Oh, that's right. It was your birthday weekend.
Well, it was the same birthday weekend as Scott here. And also the same birthday weekend as Amy Bruni, who decided not to join us because of it.
Oh.
So full kudos.
For my birthday.
Exactly. Full kudos to you, Natalie. And that's why maybe, next year I'll give you guys a discount on your booth.
We'll be there.
We'll take it.
Maybe. But now you guys are making the trip out to Vegas with us.
Yes.
And
super
you're
excited.
It's going to be amazing. That's for sure. So yeah, I was actually I was honored at how many people from Duluth just shortly after the convention then bought booths for Vegas. I did not think that many people would make that trip out there, especially with all of their stuff they have to lug with. But yeah, very honored to have you guys there. I'm greatly looking forward to it. So, the topic of tonight is your guys' specialty, astrology. It is something Miss Haley here is very, very passionate about, and she is the only one.
I did have to put in a special request.
I didn't know anything about astrology until I met Meredith, and I have to tell you how much astrology has changed my life. Just understanding the charts of my family members and seeing how things show up in different ways, and it just makes everything make so much more sense.
I want to say this, since, Natalie and I joke, she's the ghost girl and I'm like the alien crop circle girl. But since working with Natalie, I have really explored working with the astrology of haunted spaces. So maybe that'll pique your interest. And we work a lot with the Palmer House in Sauk Center, and we actually have the birth chart for that hotel. And I can almost predict with the birth chart of that hotel when the activity there is going to spike. So not only can you do astrology for people, you can do astrology for buildings or businesses or, the birth of a relationship, for example. So it's not just the astrology that you read in the newspaper. It's so layered and multifaceted. You can do so many things with it. So if you know any birth times for any haunted spaces that you work with, I would love to have more examples and more tools to work with, because I only have the Palmer House at this point, but it's really kind of freaky. When Natalie gets an emergency call, I'll pull up the chart of the Palmer House. I'm like, ooh, yeah, I can see stuff.
I forgot to tell you today that there's something happening now, so it'd be interesting to see because I got
pull it up. Did you? All right. Yeah, she's on call there all the time.
Interesting. All right. So what we wanted to do is we each wanted to take a chance to ask you guys in the group a question about astrology. And so we're going to turn it over to Haley first.
Yeah, I have so many questions written down, but I'm like, I'm going to tone it down for everyone. So my first one, I guess this isn't so much for the group. It's more something that Meredith and Natalie would be able to answer, even though if you
That's
guys
fine.
have opinions, you can totally go for it too. But first I have to say, I think it's so fun that we've got like 3 Capricorns, 2 Virgos, and 2 Cancers. What a mix.
Who's who? Haley, are you a Virgo?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the list. Virgos love the list.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
predictable.
Yeah, I'm a Capricorn. Me and Mike are Capricorns.
I'm a Capricorn.
Ah, Capricorns. Awesome. Got a lot of earth energy here. Grounded.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And then Lauren is also a Virgo, and that would make Scott the Cancer.
I have my list right here.
Yeah.
And Scott, what's Scott's sign?
Scott would be the Cancer, right?
Oh,
Yeah.
oh, wow. All right. That's crazy. All right. Haley, we're ready.
Yes. Okay. So getting into my question, I know that I believe in like a week and a half, there's a Mercury retrograde coming up. So I wanted to ask a little bit about your guys' thoughts on retrograde. I'm obviously not an expert astrologer. It's just something I like a lot. And, I read about it a lot. But personally, I think the media kind of overhypes it a little bit. But I wanted to see what your guys' thoughts were.
And I already have a follow-up.
Mike's got a follow-up.
Well, as far as I know, the media doesn't cover Mercury retrograde, but social media does.
Yes, that's what I mean. Social media hypes it up. Yeah.
Let me just explain the actual astronomy of Mercury retrograde and then the symbolism with astrology. So retrograde of any planet just means from our Earth perspective that it's moving backwards in the sky. So Mercury doesn't all of a sudden stop and start moving backwards around the sun. It's just from our perspective on Earth. It looks like Mercury stops and starts to move backwards. So that, hence the term retrograde. Natalie was actually born under a Mercury retrograde. This upcoming one that, yes, starts in a couple weeks is going to be happening in the sign of Libra. So if you have Libras in your life and look at where Libra falls in your chart, that's where it's going to happen. And Libra is the sign of relationships. And Mercury is the planet of communication. So when Mercury is going backwards, you can expect miscommunications, and this time specifically in your one-on-one partnerships or one-on-one relationships. It doesn't need to be romantic. Natalie and I are already feeling this retrograde. We are doing sessions and we're tripping over our words. We're spilling our water all over our office. Like books and tarot decks are going flying. For me, the retrogrades, the miscommunications actually happen like more in my physical body, maybe because I am a Capricorn and that earth sign. I stub my toe, I spill on myself. I see a lot of writers like Natalie born with Mercury retrograde. So with the media, you can watch the newscasters start to trip on their words if you haven't noticed that already. And what Natalie, and we talk about this a lot, Natalie, I'll let you chime in a second. When you're at the airport during a Mercury retrograde,
Yes.
It's hilarious. You can just sit, wait for your flight, and watch people drop things, watch people trip over their suitcases. It's just fascinating how this plays out when you start to pay attention to the little things with, like, for example, Mercury retrograde. That's a really good question. Sorry, Natalie, I think I cut you off. So go.
Not at all. I was just laughing because I almost texted Meredith in the beginning to say Mercury retrograde is hitting me hard already because the tech issues. I always have tech issues during Mercury retrograde. So, and we'll be doing a joint reading on Zoom or something, and our internet will cut out or something. And so I usually get hit with the tech stuff, and I like tonight not being able to get my sound working, and I'm actually more comfortable in retrograde sometimes. The shadow periods actually hit me harder. There's like 3 rules for Mercury retrograde, and that's follow the 3 R's: reflect, review, and what's the other one? It's along the same lines. But
I know you're gonna ask me. Reflect, review.
Yeah.
It's just reconsider. Yeah, all the re's.
So if you're getting hit by a Mercury retrograde, that's a really good time to just stop what you're doing and kind of reassess everything that you're going through in your life. And I usually find my writing skills to be amplified during Mercury retrograde because it's kind of a perfect chunk of time where you can just focus on that, where by design, we're supposed to be doing that during those times.
And I recommend, with the Libra energy coming up, there's a lot of tough stuff going on in the collective right now. So if you need to have some tough conversations with your loved ones or people close to you in your life, a retrograde might be a good time to do that because you're less likely to react and more likely to respond because that communication impulse is slowed down a little bit. And how many of us can react and triggers being kicked on? So I like the retrograde for kind of journaling your thoughts or maybe kind of doing a meditation. Great time for meditation, especially if you have psychic gifts. A lot of information can come in. And also notice if your dreams change during Mercury retrograde, if you get more messages or kind of crazy stories happen in your dreams. So it's not all bad. Social media, I love the memes. They're hilarious with Mercury retrograde. I love the Freddie Mercury one, more Freddie, less Mercury. I don't forget what it is. I think I put it on my webpage once. I wish I was better at memes. But yeah, it is overblown, probably because it's the most popular and well-known retrograde. It happens 3 or 4 times a year, where Venus will only go retrograde every 2 years like Mars, and the outer planets are actually retrograde about 6 months per year. So, it's just the most popular one.
Gotcha. I was like, there's a lot of background noise.
Yeah. I heard a curse word or two.
That was a Mercury retrograde thing, I bet.
Okay.
Exactly. My son's AirPods just connected to my FaceTime group chat. So
classic. There you go. Real live example of retrograde.
Yeah, here you can't make it up. But I was gonna say something, but I have no idea what it was now.
Okay, so I brought this up on the show before to Haley especially, and because she brought up retrograde, that's exactly the topic. So, Meredith, you even said, the retrograde is the fact that Mercury looks like it's kind of going backwards in its orbit, as opposed to, its normal orbit. But that's just an optical illusion. It doesn't actually stop. It doesn't actually do anything different than it did any other day. So my question is, what is changing besides our perspective and our mentality as we watch this and get fooled by this, that is actually causing any of this stuff to happen? If nothing is actually changing, except for our, like, what we see and how we perceive it.
I love that you said the word illusion, because we can go deep down rabbit holes about what's real, what's an illusion. But
We have
yeah,
45 minutes to do so.
with astrology, it's symbolism. It's symbolic. So Mercury wants to be going on a straight line. Our communication is outward. With it going backwards, communication comes more internal. Like the energy goes this way instead of that way. So it's just a change in direction. And Mercury in mythology is the trickster. So depending on your personal birth chart and the collective stuff, Mercury will usually throw you a trick, or he really wants. Actually, this planet is gender neutral. Really wants to get a reaction out of you. The best positive reaction is a smile or a laugh. Like that's what I tell my clients. Like it's gonna get annoying. Mercury retrograde really doesn't ever bring anything catastrophic, but just like little internet things, frustrating things. And I say try and find the humor in it. Try and laugh at it instead of letting it build up the tension. It's a really good kind of teacher for us too. But you're right, Mike, nothing changes besides our perspective. And our perspective is everything. We give meaning to everything with our perspective.
So it's almost like a superstition.
No, let me jump in with that. I think that even though it looks like it's moving backwards in the sky, it's still making a movement that's going to hit your chart. So
yeah, it starts to move backwards in your chart as well.
So it's still doing something. It just looks from our perspective on Earth like it's moving backwards. It is rotating and it is making a movement in your chart. So it's still going to hit something. I'm sure Meredith probably explained this in the beginning, but with evolutionary astrology, she works from the perspective of whatever the stars in the sky were doing the moment you take your first breath sets your roadmap for your life. So those planets are constantly moving. So when we're born and we take our first breath,
freeze the sky.
That snapshot in the moment is what is your roadmap. So those planets are constantly moving, whether they're moving backwards or forwards, they're still moving. So there's still something to that. However, the one thing I was going to add is that we have an insane power to manifest right now with the way the earth energies are lined up. So the more we get hung up on the fact that we're in Mercury retrograde and start worrying about how is that going to affect my life, the more we're actually going to manifest and draw that energy into our life. Does that make sense?
So could I take Mercury retrograde and turn that into like winning the lottery and then manifest that?
Well, you can't manifest that.
I'd say you want to look at Jupiter. Good fortune, good luck. That's your lottery ticket. Probably not Mercury.
It was worth a shot. All right. I don't have anything else for this question. Somebody else want to go next?
Yeah,
I will. Too.
Wait, I have a small follow-up, Sam. Do you care if I put that in there?
Yeah, no, go
okay.
for it.
So in terms of like planetary retrogrades, and we kind of mentioned that like social media makes out Mercury retrograde to be kind of like a big deal, a really catastrophic thing, when really it's not as bad as it seems. Is there a certain planet retrograde that you would say is more intense like that or catastrophic, if you want to use an extreme word?
Yeah, the outer planets are bigger deals, and the rarer retrogrades, Mars, Venus, are a little bit bigger deals. And what I want to emphasize is before a planet starts to move backwards from our perspective, it stops. So it stops, and you're going to want to pay attention to the degree of the zodiac where that planet stops. And before it starts to move backwards from our perspective. And those tend to be bigger deals. So if Jupiter or Saturn on a day stops, like you're going to see that reflected in the news stories, actually. And it was a Jupiter retrograde that actually brought me to Natalie. I should have been a good astrologer and looking at my chart before I met her. But like Jupiter had stopped. She was the planet of good luck. And I got some really bad news that day about my previous office space. My landlord had jacked the rent 40%, just out of the blue. And I was like, I can't afford that. I just started my business. And I was so upset and so mad. And I was like, stupid Jupiter, he's not all good luck and abundance. Well, I'm going to quit my job, blah, blah, blah. And then lo and behold, a few weeks later, that bad thing I ended up in a new building and I met Natalie. And lo and behold, that actually was good luck and abundance. But in the moment, things can feel bad. I don't really like using that word in my practice, good, bad, but just hold out, because you never know what these planets are going to line up for you. And those bad things can turn into amazing things if you just kind of surrender to it. So that's kind of an example. It was like a bigger kind of uncomfortable period in my life that ended up course correcting me for something that was for my highest good. And it was the universe throwing me and Natalie together, I believe.
Oh,
Does that answer your question?
I
Yes.
thought you were legitimately going to use that as a verb, like throwing me and Natalie.
Oh,
I thought you were going to stop your sentence right there, and how the good luck or whatever had thrown you and Natalie.
nope. we get thrown around by the universe a little bit, but everybody does.
Yeah, we do.
We do. We're getting rocked right now.
Sam, your question?
Yeah, so I was just going to ask the question of like, in what areas of my life, or I guess like to do it in the second person, in what areas in people's lives do you think astrology can be best applied to? Like, in what areas in my life can I best apply the principles of astrology to get the most out of it?
It's very personal. I mean, some people come to us for love and relationship advice, kids and family. How do I, mend my family relationships? A lot of people come to us about past life karma, generational ancestry healing. And some people come and like, I'm stuck. I don't even know who I am anymore because I've given everything away to other people and I've never done anything that I was passionate about. I've always been like we call it shooting ourselves. I should do this. I should go to this school. I should take this job. So when people are tired of that, they come like, who am I? And I love astrology because it's just a great tool to discover maybe some hidden sleeping gifts in your chart and to really like self-discovery and understanding yourself on a whole different level. I mean, I actually have a science background. I was a science major. I was astronomy club president in my high school. I used to think astrology was a bunch of BS until I was about in my 30s. And then I read a few things about Capricorn, and it was control, a little bit doom and gloom, all business, that kind of Capricorn stuff. And I was like, there's traits to the signs? I had no idea. So just learning about Capricorn set me on a journey to dive into the chart more. So it's a personal thing. Like, what do you want to learn about yourself? For me, astrology really helped me have compassion for other people. The people that get under your skin, or you just, I don't understand that person. What are they doing? And you look at their chart and you're like, oh, that is what they're dealing with. That is what is under the surface. That is what is going on inside of them. And it's helped me have compassion for literally every soul on this planet. So that's what it's done for me. But I mean, that's a complex question, Sam. It's like really like in the moment. I'll let Natalie chime in too, but it's a personal journey.
And for me, I have two parts to that answer. From a practice standpoint, as a psychic, I came from a law background. I have a very logical, rational lawyer brain. And for me, it's enhanced my psychic practice because working with Meredith adds a different layer of validation to the work that I'm already doing. So we're both getting information from the nethers and we're pulling it from different places. And when it lines up, it's crazy. So there'll be times where we're sitting in a reading and all of a sudden I'll say something and it's just coming in through my gifts. And Meredith will say, I'm looking at that here in the chart and I couldn't figure out the words to say that, but here's where the chart backs that up. And so for our clients, it's awesome because you get two layers of validation from us while you're sitting in on a session, and I just like it because it validates my gift. I really came into this questioning, like, how do I know I'm not making this up? How can I prove this? And the astrology chart really helps to prove it. And
I still have that too. We blow each other's minds. Like in the session, we'll like freak out in front of the client sometimes. Yeah, I mean, like the astrology chart I've found it really backs up what a good psychic, Akashic Records reader, a tarot reading, a palm reading. I have clients that went to readers 20, 30 years ago. I don't know that. They'll sit on my couch and they're like, oh yeah, someone told me that 20 years ago. And I'm like, really? Wow. So yeah, it's really validating. And I love astrology for my science brain because anyone can learn astrology. it's not easy to learn. It's really difficult. It's like getting a PhD to learn it, but I like that about it because anyone can learn it. I don't feel like I'm a Capricorn, so not super intuitive, not famous for that. But it's helped me become more intuitive and getting past my ego, just learning kind of like the symbolism. And yeah, what Natalie said, I'll look at a chart and I'm like, it's like looking at a different language. And I'll have a picture in my brain, but I struggle with the language translation to the client, so it makes sense to the client, because I can't say Mercury is square Saturn, in your second house. Like, what does that mean to you guys? I have to learn how to translate that, and I'll be struggling. And then Natalie will say something out of her mouth, and I'm like, yes, I've been trying to figure out how to put that into words, and we're so energetically connected. It's nuts. And she'll actually say out of her mouth what I was like struggling to get out of mine. So it's just magic.
And with that, we've actually taken it to another level. Working together, we've been able to identify signs and symbols in the chart that aren't in any books. Like, there are certain symbols where I constantly pull in the same storylines. So together, we've been able to identify new aspects to astrology that aren't really recorded anywhere.
And one of my goals eventually is to do like the science or the pseudoscience of astrology, because I'll have the chart in front of me, which Natalie doesn't know how to read. And she'll be pulling things in. I'll find it in the chart and I consistently see what she's pulling in, if she's describing a theme or an archetype. I know exactly where to look in the chart, and she consistently pulls in things where I've started to think about it differently. And then I've watched different YouTube videos where other psychics or other astrologers came to the same conclusion independently, which verifies what we're finding in our sessions. So I'm still working out the details on how to do the science of astrology, because I think it's an important thing to study, and I'd love to kind of take that to the next level.
Yeah. So, for example, there's one sign that we've identified either means you were in a brothel or a convent or a life of servitude of some kind. And
those are some major extremes.
Well, they're both lives of like contracts. So the symbol is like a contractual life, and yeah, so it could be like you were thrown in the monastery and you signed your contract to Christianity or whatever religion you were in that lifetime. The brothel, sometimes there was lifetimes where there was no other options. So it's like a life of where you're stuck and you have to do this thing and you feel like you can't escape it. And if for anyone who knows astrology, that symbol is Vesta, who is associated with the Vestal Virgins of Rome. That's the mythology of Vesta. And she has found past life stuff with that symbol.
So that's the professional side of it. But from a personal side of it, when I sat down once during the shutdown. I had a day where I didn't have anything to do. And I sat down and I pulled all the charts for everyone in my family. And I've never been schooled in astrology other than sitting next to Meredith. So I've picked up a lot vicariously just from sitting in on every single session we've ever done together. But I was able to look at my charts, and for example, my middle son and my daughter are fighting all the time, and I don't understand that. And my oldest is the kind of personality that just goes with the flow. And I was able to look and pull out all of those things from their birth charts, and it made sense. And like Meredith was saying before, it gave me a lot of empathy for where they're coming from, because every one of us is wired a little bit differently. And having the astrology chart in front of you can show you exactly how you're wired. And that gave me a different way to understand what some of my own family dynamics were.
I'm going to have a thick chart. I know that much. Next question.
I have a question. So you guys said that in your readings you work together and you kind of bring together your separate readings. So I was just wondering, has there ever been a situation where maybe you got totally conflicting separate readings, or it just didn't make sense, it never like meshed or came together, or it was just like confusing to you?
We independently, if we're working with a client, for example, I think this might have happened today at least once, we don't agree on 100% of our sessions. Like Natalie will chime in and I'll be like, I actually have a different perspective, and we'll do that in front of the clients. She'll offer this and I'll offer this. So we're not always in line. We're always compatible, but like, is that what you mean, Lauren? Like the client, we want to make sure the client is understanding what's coming out of our mouths, first of all, but we don't always come to the same conclusion. They're pretty close, but not always 100% in line, and I don't think they should be. You know, kind of offer different perspectives. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah. No, I was just curious how that, because they're obviously, like, I feel like these two areas haven't really been meshed together the way that you guys are bringing them together, which I think is really interesting. But, you know, there's always growing pains. So I was just wondering how that worked with you guys.
You know, we, I think we very quickly developed, Meredith calls it our login process, but we very quickly developed a process and a protocol with how we begin a session, and Meredith will explain what she's going to do and I explain how I work. And then there's an energy element to that as well. And part of my practice is always to connect to the higher self of whoever I'm working with, and that instantly takes my ego out of it, and then I can trust that the messages coming in are just from that person's higher self and direction. And so I think that helps a lot. And then with the way that energy is flowing, I think, yeah, you know, none of this is an exact science. So, and we're human interpreters, and humans by our very nature make mistakes. So a lot of times, like, I'll be reading things through my bias and have a process where I have to filter out that in my sessions. And so, but for the most part, it flows really organically. I mean, we could seriously talk till 5 a.m. about any client that's coming in to see us.
Yeah, and I don't, like, I'm a business owner. Capricorns are kind of the business people of the zodiac, and I don't always work well with others. I'm very nitpicky, and like I'm very particular on the energy between people and who I work with professionally. And Natalie and I were just like, boom, and we started working together after just a few practice sessions, and it was just like so natural. Where other business adventures you do take so much work and effort, but this was just easy, which is not a Capricorn keyword. So it's been interesting how I just think we were meant to find each other and do this work. And we've been doing it. I think we're about to hit our 3-year anniversary, Natalie, by the way. We're pretty close to 3 years in business together. Champagne next time we go out to happy hour.
Congrats.
Before anything else to add to that question at all? All right. So I would like to get your ladies' reaction to this. So this came in obviously from our chat. We essentially came from the stars, so we're almost obligated to respect the aspects of astrology.
Yeah, I mean, I don't feel like there's an obligation. I think it's free will, free choice. Astrology is not for everyone. I don't think we should be forced or obligated to study it or practice it. But I agree, like, as above, so below. There is something to the cosmic makeup of the sky, and it is reflected here on Earth. I don't know how or why, but astrology is probably the oldest science on the planet. Every single culture had some form of astrology or studying the stars. So it's the oldest form of math and science that we have. And if you look into it, I guarantee something will resonate. Again, it's not for everybody. So yes, I agree with that statement. Besides the word obligation, I have to be a little Virgo with the nitpicking. Besides the obligation, I don't think there's an obligation. You get to choose if you want to look up and study them.
And I just think we're opening up our minds to so many other ways to figure things out. That's part of what our Earth energy is doing to us right now, is helping us think outside the box and problem solve a little bit differently than maybe we did before. And astrology is certainly one way to tap into that.
Scott, did you have a question?
Yeah. I've read about this a little bit before, but I can't remember what I read. So what I'm wondering is, my sun sign is Cancer, my moon sign is Leo, and with Sagittarius in the ascendant. How do those things interact with each other and relate to each other? What is the
Great question. So you just named the big three. The sun sign, the moon sign, and the rising sign. If you just know these about yourself and another person, it can really help you. The sun in astrology, the sun, we have 12 signs of zodiac, changes signs once per month. The sun is symbolic of our ego, our identity. That's why you say, I am a Cancer. And the sun wants to shine. So you shine doing your sun sign things. It's very more visible in the world. The moon sign is more of the soul level. I call it the backseat driver in your chart. It's more of the intuition, not the ego intelligence. It's like the body's intelligence. It's also symbolic of your own mother, which is a side note. The moon changes signs every 2.5 days. So not everybody with the same sun sign will have the same moon sign. And that's more of the intuition, kind of like more untouchable energy, but it's like more in your DNA, not of the brain, which I think of like the brain and being sun and Mercury. The rising sign, I love working with the rising sign because everyone has experience with this. This is why astrologers need the birth time. The rising sign is the sign that was rising on the horizon the moment you took your first breath. And this is symbolic of the energy you're pumping out to the universe. It's people's first impression of you. It's nicknamed the mask that you wear. So Scott has a mask of a Sagittarius. That Cancer energy is not going to come out until he's really comfortable with people and gets to know them better. The rising sign, for example, everyone has met somebody at a party or at a job or somewhere, and they're like, I thought they were super extroverted. They were like, wah, when I met them. But once they got to know them better, they're like, oh, that person's actually really introverted. The rising sign is kind of on full display when you first walk into a situation. When you go to a pair of unity, your rising sign's probably on for everybody. But your sun and moon, you're not going to show those signs until you're a little bit more comfortable with people. Does that make sense, Scott?
Yeah.
Okay.
So just quick side note here. Meredith and I have the same moon sign of Sagittarius. And I'm a Capricorn rising, which is one of the reasons I think she probably gets along more with this Cancer than maybe some others, because we also share the Capricorn energy.
I see that a lot in couples and friends. Like you'll have 2 out of the 3 the same. Even me and my husband have 2 of the 3 of the big 3 the same. I mean, it's not for sure, but there is a compatibility there. And yeah, the rising sign is really important because it sets the whole chart in motion. So I will struggle a lot sometimes in sessions where somebody was adopted or born in another country. They don't have their birth times. And then Natalie can usually get a ping like morning, night, afternoon. We'll work with a pendulum to try and figure it out. But that, I mean, sets the whole chart. And even twins born a few minutes apart are going to have different rising degrees in minutes. So like even those couple minutes, I mean, the earth is constantly moving, can change a lot. Minutes can turn into months and years when you're doing forecasting with astrology. Good question. I'm glad we covered that. The basics.
Follow up. So I have never heard of the other 2 signs. How would one, I know that's shocking. How would one go about figuring out what the other 2 signs are?
There are a zillion apps on your phone these days. I really recommend Charlie Nicholas has a great app and a website. You can pull your whole chart for free. Astro.com has free charts. Also, Time Passages, which I think might only be for iPhone, is my favorite app for people learning astrology. It'll actually break down all of your signs, not just sun, moon, rising, but where was Mars when you were born? Mars is how do we fight? He's the god of war. Where is your Venus? That's how you love, give and receive love. So even though you might be a Virgo, you might love like a Leo, which is way different than Virgo. So you want to look at all these pieces of yourself and kind of like cosmic soup, put it all together. But it's just, yeah, it's fascinating. So Mike, try Time Passages or just astro.com. Great place to pull free resources.
And then since this is a paranormal platform, there's a specific sign in the chart for non-physical reality, and that's always fun to look at. It's the 12th house, and that's always fun to look at when you're looking at a chart for someone who's interested in the paranormal or
yes,
and there's a past life symbol too that can really come into play, and that's what the North Node is. That right?
South Node, really close.
Okay.
If you are into the paranormal, I guarantee you've got something going on in Scorpio with Pluto, with the 8th house or the 12th house. Yeah. So it'd be interesting if you guys know nothing about your charts to pull that and see if I'm correct. There's that Scorpio, there's the witchy ghost, getting to the bottom of things, the mystery sign. So I guarantee if you're into the paranormal, you got some of those signatures in your chart.
It's actually hilarious that I've never forced Mike to give me his birth time. I can't believe I've never done that.
Get on it.
I guess you just don't care about my life. That's all.
Well, it's because you've always been like he's
Bah
a little
humbug.
bit of a bah humbug. He's a Scrooge about astrology.
Oh no, the Capricorns need proof, need the tangible evidence. I mean, that's what ghost hunters need too. So I mean, you almost maybe when you start ghost hunting, like, well, I need to prove that there's energy, there's spirits, and I 1000% respect that because I'm still proving astrology to myself every day. I still have my moments where I'm like, am I an astrologer? Like what? And then the client will walk in, I'm like, okay, yep. Doubt gone. So yeah, I think the healthy skepticism is important too.
But then also, like, for example, for me and Scott, we're Cancers, and Cancer, Scorpio, and Pisces are considered the most psychic signs of the zodiac. So more likely than not, we will walk into a paranormal investigation and it'll be all about what we're feeling and what we're sensing. And I'm actually really grateful that I was a paranormal investigator before I knew I was this psychic, because it gave me some of those ground tools, like the Capricorn. I need to prove this before I would just believe everything that I was feeling. So that's always a cool thing to look at too, is how do you approach a paranormal investigation.
Yeah, and the Virgo Capricorns, if you can relate, we feel anxiety. I'm not a big feeler. The Capricorn's not famous unless you got other things in your chart. But yeah, I walk into a haunted place, nothing. Like I can't sense any of it. If you tell me that there's a ghost there, I'll believe you, and they'll show me the Xbox or the Kinect you guys have. That's so cool. But yeah, I don't sense it at all. No Xbox Kinect thing. I saw the stick figures. That was kind of cool.
We have.
No, I have it. It's just not very good.
Yeah.
Worked for this Capricorn. I was like, oh, can't make that up. Okay.
Well, yeah. If you don't know how.
Go ahead.
Nothing. I was just gonna make fun of it. That's all.
Well, it's a little different when when something's trying to map in and it's all wibbly and wobbly and you're not sure what it is. But when you get that image to map in and you ask it, would you please wave your right hand, and it waves its right hand, like that's a little bit different layer of validation too.
And yeah, I feel like with ghost hunting, you can get all the data, but it's like the experience is like really the juicy part. Like you experience this thing and then you want to prove it to other people, but it's like in you, that's an experience. And astrology as well is an experience. They're kind of aligned here. And again, I don't have a lot of ghost hunting background. Again, aliens are my jam. But yeah, it's kind of, I think there's an alignment there.
That's fair. So before I get to, I guess my next question, because retrograde was going to be mine, but from the chat room again, I had a psychic tell me recently that I'm drawn to the moon. Not 100% sure what she meant by that. Any ideas?
Like, I've got a few.
I think I've noticed lately that we're more affected by the moon than we ever have been before, just with the way the earth energies have shifted. And we've seen in our practice how if you were born on a new moon or a full moon, it can mean certain things in your daily life. But we've been I've really been seeing a difference. The new moon each month is said to be a good time to manifest things. So the new moon each month is usually when I sit down and write a list of things that I want to manifest in my life. And I've been keeping those in the same notebook, and it's been fascinating to be able to go back to the previous months and cross things off as they've come forward in my life. So that's kind of a fun exercise to do right now. And the full moon is said to be a good time to purge things that are no longer serving you. I always really feel the full moon. It just I actually feel it in my heart center if when the moon is getting full, and So that's just a good time. We all have a lot of shadow work to do. We all end up carrying things that we're angry about that we aren't really serving us. So the full moon is a really good time to sit down and write your FU letters to whoever you need, whoever has pissed you off in the last month. And then I like to burn those and just feel it release from my body. And then I spread those ashes next to my favorite tree or in a flower garden just to symbolize I'm recycling this. It's not serving me. And it can be really effective. And you never really know what you're mad about till you sit down and focus on it for a minute. And it doesn't do us any good to keep carrying that stuff around day after day. So to have a process each month where you're just purging that stuff and moving on and rising above it and getting over it can really be helpful.
Yeah, and to answer that specific question, I mean, I'd want to go back to the psychic and be like, what did you mean by that? In astrology speak, it could be that person was a Cancer, so every sign of the zodiac is ruled by a planet, and the moon is a planet in astrology. So it could be simply that they were a Cancer, they were born on a full moon, or the moon was on a hot spot in their chart. But if you hear something from an astrologer, a psychic, a tarot reader, and it doesn't resonate, don't overanalyze it too much. Just be like, that didn't make sense to me, feel nothing about it, maybe Control, delete that statement. But yeah, drawn to the moon, if that person isn't drawn to the moon, then okay, that maybe was incorrect. The moon in astrology is also symbolic for motherhood. So it could be simply they're drawn to motherhood someday, something like that. Again, it's really, really layered about what that could mean for that person.
That's fair. Nicole, I hope that helped. Okay, so this question probably should have been asked a long time ago. Because you've mentioned it maybe 75 times tonight, and I haven't understood a single time that you've mentioned it. So obviously, if you have gotten the gist here, for me personally, I don't know anything about astrology, like beyond just what the signs are and the fact that I used to read my horoscope in the newspaper growing up. Like that's it. Mm-hmm. I have never, ever, ever heard anybody say, like, look at your astrology chart. You've mentioned chart like 1,000 times tonight. I have no idea what you're talking about. Like, what is this chart and what is it supposed to show you? Where do you get it? Where do you get it?
Hold on. I'll pull up mine and I'll show
I'm
you.
going to, I'm going to share can I share my screen?
You can, at least I think you can. I know I can, but down at the bottom, you should see a little computer that says, hold on a second. I think.
Am I sharing? Can you see it?
Hold on. It's coming up. There you go.
All right. This is the chart of, let's see, 7:38 p.m. today, probably when I last logged on to my software.
That looks simple to understand.
It is. It's hieroglyphics. It's a language. Yeah, it's like learning another language, and it's not a linear left brain thing, which was hard for me at first because I'm so left brain logical, Capricorn pragmatic. But yeah, this whole chart tells a story. And again, this is the chart of today for everybody on the planet. So if there's a baby born at 7:38 p.m. in St. Paul, Minnesota, this is their birth chart. So there's an example.
Wow. Okay.
Can't read that, Mike? Come on. No.
Nope. It's like looking at hieroglyphics.
It is. That's what I tell my clients. But I mean, you can notice little things. Like, do you notice an empty part? The lines in the middle, like the red is tension, the blue is harmonious, kind of easy energy, and the green is more compartmentalized. And that stuff in the middle changes by the minute. You can probably see the moon. It actually looks like the symbol of the moon. The sun is a circle with a dot. Here's Mars. You'll probably recognize Venus. Those are planetary glyphs. So yeah, very complex, very old science, if you will, or pseudoscience, depending on who you ask. But again, I like it because there's science, there's math, there's astronomy, geometry, symbolism, mythology, all of my kind of favorite subjects when I was a little girl, all meshed into one. So it's my passion. Again, I didn't discover it until I was in my early 30s. I left a 17-year corporate, very successful career to do this. But again, it's my calling, and it kind of synchronistically landed in my lap.
Sorry, I hate that word.
Yeah, don't say synchronicity or anything with that around Mike.
coincidentally
There we
landed
go.
in my lap.
There you go. I can tolerate that. That must be my Capricorn in me.
Yep.
We're learning a lot about
Yeah, Capricorns are all about tolerance.
And ruining fun. I love that word. Ah, Capricorn, no. I can't say it. Just kidding. Capricorn humor.
Which means nothing to me. I don't understand that.
That's why it's funny to me. Sunday.
That's fair. So, I mean, when I go to astral.com and I get my chart, I'm not going to understand a single word of it, am I?
Nope. That's why I recommend Chani Nicholas or time passages that you can actually click on. My sun sign is Capricorn, and you click on that, it will give you actually text description about what that means and the symbolism of the sun in Capricorn or your moon sign. So try time passages or Chani Nicholas, CHANI Nicholas.com, and she has an app out now too. It's fantastic.
Mike, I also have her book if you would like to borrow that.
Did you like it? I haven't read it yet.
It's pretty good.
Is it good?
I like it. Yeah. My big problem, which I think I talked to you a little bit about this at the convention, is if I want to go with Placidus or whole sign, but I'm not going to get into that because people don't know what that means. But
very advanced question. Yes, for another time.
I haven't known what 75% of what we've talked about tonight means, so you might as well just continue on the path. Don't worry about us.
Hopefully it made sense. It can get really complex, Mike. It really can. So even if you just want to start with the signs and memorize just traits of the signs, even Capricorn, or all the signs, there's a lot of memorization with astrology. And if you just know the traits, it'll really help you kind of like absorb the information.
And if you know your sun, moon, rising sign and just start following those, Meredith actually does a really excellent newsletter where if certain things are happening in the sky, she'll do a newsletter that says this is how this energy is affecting you if you're Capricorn or Sagittarius. And if you look at all of your different big three signs, it'll line up and give you information. So it's a way to just start in on this.
And if you read horoscopes in the newspaper, you should be reading your rising sign. That's something that nobody really knows. So if Capricorn doesn't make sense, and it's really hard to write horoscopes because there's not just 12 kinds of people in the world, but try your rising sign. That's usually what most astrologers write the horoscopes for, is the rising sign, because again, that sets the whole chart in motion.
Well, now I need to rethink my entire life.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. I was today years old when I found out. I've been wrong about everything.
Today years old. Yeah, you just recently found that phrase and now you use it everywhere, don't you?
No, I did not recently learn that. I learned that phrase a long time ago. But
I like that one. I'll allow it.
I'll allow it.
The S word is not allowed, but that phrase is allowed.
Yeah.
Synchronicity.
Oh, yeah. Sorry.
Synchronicity.
I was thinking shit.
Oh, that's one of my favorites.
It's like, why is that not allowed? You're right. So since we only have we have three different, Cancer, Capricorn, and Virgo. What are some of the, with the 6 minutes that we have left, like what are some of the main traits from each of those?
Well, let's start with Virgo because that's the easiest almost. So Virgo, the list people, the details, the OCD sign of the zodiac, getting things just right and perfect. The Virgos have usually a certain way to load the dishwasher. If they see a crooked picture on the wall, they need to straighten it, just like the little kind of nitpicky stuff. Virgo is very prone to self-criticism. So watch that negative self-talk, Virgos.
That could not be more true.
You know what that is. And don't beat yourself up for the little nitpicky stuff that isn't just perfect. Virgo is the sign of perfection.
My favorite stereotype that she says is that Virgos have fun organizing their spice rack on a Friday night. And actually, we're in the middle of Virgo season right now. And my daughter actually did that the other night. And I had to text Meredith a picture of the spice rack that got organized the other night at my house because my daughter thought it was fun.
Yeah, and her Virgo son just went off to college and organized his granola bars by size. I'm like, Virgo. Virgo, yes. So everybody has Virgo in their chart. So I have a lot of Virgo energy, and most of mine manifests in like spelling and grammar. I'm like super psycho about getting spelling right, spelling bee champion. That's where most of my Virgo energy shows up. So where in your life are you nitpicky? Is it about relationships? Is it about your home? Is it super psycho clean? That kind of stuff. So everybody has Virgo somewhere. So that's Virgo in a nutshell. Mike, does that make sense?
Well, I was going to say then one of my, it's probably not sun, because the sun would be the Capricorn, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Well, then either moon or rising is definitely one of mine in Virgo, because everything that you just talked about with like the like being hard on yourself and making sure the dishwasher's properly organized, and like that is all me right there, being a perfectionist.
Virgo and Capricorn are very, very similar signs. Capricorn is another earth sign. Capricorn craves control and like the structure of the day. It's like the bones of the zodiac. And Capricorn can feel responsible for everything and everyone. Whereas the other, Sam is a Capricorn.
That doesn't sound like me at all.
I'm a Capricorn, so they're the atlases of the zodiac. Do you guys carry a lot of stress in your shoulders and upper back? Symbolic of like kind of carrying the world on your shoulders. And Capricorns can be more of the pessimistic sign of the zodiac. They can think of everything that can go wrong and then try and control those things from going wrong. That's where the Capricorn control kind of comes into it. Lives in the future a lot. Good news about Capricorn. There is some good news about Capricorn.
Finally.
I know, they are the most pessimistic, but they are the only sign of the zodiac that reverse ages. So if you're a Capricorn and you feel like you were born old, you will get younger as you age. My favorite Capricorn is Betty White. She's like 9,000 years old, but she's now 16. Like, it's just amazing.
Is that why I still look 25?
Absolutely. Yeah. Yep, you'll get younger as you age. So yeah, Capricorn, Virgo, very, very similar, but different. And then Cancer, a couple Cancers here. That's a water sign now. So we got earth and water tonight. Cancers are the intuitives, the empaths, very kind of guarded. You know, Cancer is represented by that crab. So all Cancers have like a shell, and I never know if the Cancer crab shell is going to be made out of titanium or if it's going to be made out of paper thin, but all Cancers are soft and mushy inside, and they are the caregivers. They're the nurturers. It's so funny because, you know, I'm a Capricorn and I don't really cry very easily. I'm not a super emotional person, and I have to like schedule my cries. I'm like, okay, dog movie, bottle of wine, try and get it out of me. And then Natalie, I met Natalie, she's like crying all the time, and I'm like, how do you do that? And how does that happen? So we have this like funny thing, and she's teaching me how to cry. I'm teaching her how not to.
It's funny. So with that, I used to be a lawyer, and I actually had no idea I was such an empath at the time, and it made me a really terrible lawyer because I cried all the time. I was around all these really confrontational people, and I felt that to my bones, and didn't have any skills or ability to be able to block that out. And as I've gotten older, as I've come into my own gifts and figured out how to manage that, I can actually turn on my Capricorn when I need to. For example, my dad passed away last summer, and I gave the eulogy, and I didn't cry a single tear the whole day. And I was so proud of myself. I went to Meredith and I was like, I Capricorned my day.
Your rising sign was on point. Yeah, it's crazy. And I like that you can tune into that Capricorn, probably not all the time. But yeah, Natalie, one day I walked in the office, she's like, I got it, Eureka, I know how to stop crying. I say Capricorn 3 times in a row. And I'm like, oh. So
Beetlejuice astrology?
Beetlejuice astrology. I love that. I'm going to steal that. You Beetlejuice astrology. Love it. Yep, she did it. I'm going to watch that movie tonight now. So good. All right, Virgos. Any other questions? I'm here all night. So what do you got? Got all the questions answered? We can.
Well,
unfortunately,
we have like 12 seconds. Otherwise,
it's an hour show.
I have a quick question, actually. I don't know if Haley is a quick one, but I have a quick question.
I have no quick questions. They're all too much.
Okay. So I was reading an article the other day where it was like these celebrities are like triple signs. So like I think it was like Chris Pine was like a triple Virgo. What does that mean?
That means their sun sign, their moon sign, and their rising sign are the same. I have now, in 4.5 years in business, met 5 triple signs. It's incredibly rare. The double sign is more popular, which means your sun and moon are the same, or your sun and the rising are the same. But triple signs, I mean, you have to be born on a new moon, and that new moon needs to be rising. So very rare thing to be a triple sign. I did not know that about Chris Pine. I'm going to confirm that as soon as we log off, because I don't
think
really
it was him,
know.
but somebody was a triple Virgo. I'm like, oh, that sounds intense.
That's too much Virgo.
How
And I'm a
does
Virgo.
he? Wow, and he's an actor. Ooh, okay. I'm gonna have to look that up. I'm a huge Star Trek fan, so I know Chris Pine.
Good choice. Yeah.
Yeah. I salute you, Meredith.
All right, yeah. No, I'm sci-fi-geek.com. Star Wars, X-Files, Star Trek, all of it.
Nice. So ending on a high note there.
Yeah.
But that does do it for the show tonight. Thank you, Natalie
Of
and
course.
Meredith, for
Thank
coming
you.
on.
Of course. Thank you for having us.
Even though I understood 34% of what you said, I still enjoyed everything, and now I have something to learn. So go me.
Yes.
But I hope everybody watching, had a good time. And honestly, I think, in the future, I'd love to have you two back, because I'm sure we're going to have a lot more to talk about.
Yeah. Otherwise, we'll see you in Vegas. Couple months.
You will see us in Vegas. That is
Hell
correct.
yeah.
I haven't been there in a while. I'm a different person now. Last time I was in Vegas. I'm going to Vegas to work. What? Not to do other things.
Only work half the time.
Okay.
So,
Yeah, we'll try. We'll have to get a show in or something like that.
absolutely. So, all right. Well, that does it for us. We'll be back here next week with another new episode. Everybody stay healthy, stay safe. We want to see you back here. Everyone have a good night.
All right. Thank you, Mike.